The first cruise ship to resume sailing in the Caribbean is having a COVID scare. The captain said the passenger who was tested had felt ill before the test. Passengers were required to have 2 negative COVID tests before boarding.
Here's a summary of the article.
The first cruise vessel to resume sailing in the Caribbean is in the midst of a COVID scare. The list of passengers on board Seadream 1, which just resumed Caribbean sailings on Saturday out of Barbados, includes me. The sailing was the first in the Caribbean by any cruise vessel since the coronavirus crisis was declared a pandemic in March. The Caribbean is the world's biggest cruise destination, accounting for at least a third of all cruises taken in a normal year, and the cruise industry has been eyeing a restart in the region for many months. Driven in part by the COVID testing requirements of Barbados, where the ship is scheduled to spend the winter, this is a far more rigorous testing regime than the world's biggest cruise lines have mapped out in their plans for a cruising comeback. During his address to passengers, Lund said the results of the test that came back positive, a rapid test, were preliminary, but the vessel was working under the assumption that it had 1 or more COVID patients on board. Gene Sloan has written about cruising for more than 25 years and for many years oversaw USA Today's award-winning cruise site, USA Today Cruises.
This post received a score of 2,400, with an upvote ratio of 97%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Maybe don't take a cruise during a pandemic? Hell, even when it is not a pandemic, these things tend to have outbreaks of disease all the time.
Norovirus for everyone.
Vomiting and diarrhea for days in close proximity to thousands of other people. Whose idea of a vacation is that anyway?
Sounds like every morning during Mardi Gras.
Vegas checking in.
Music festivals say, "Hold my beer."
Rumspringa.
Who in the world thought it was a good idea to go on a cruise right now?
Idiots looking for a good deal.
And kids who never really liked their parents.
The passenger felt ill and got on the ship anyway. He may go the way of the industry.
The older I grow and the more interconnected our systems become, the more convinced that the best of us is only able to do so well as the most stupid and/or selfish of us. Personal accountability, but that never exists if you just don't think or care what happens to anyone else.
You're ready to work in IT now.
Not even that. I recall being taught chess by my father. Simply the will and practiced ability to think of the next move, consequences. Or the lack thereof, or the lack of caring what the impacts might be. Sad face.
Amazing. Who could have guessed that might happen?
Fuck cruises. They absolutely shred the environment, and for what? So someone can get around on a floating hotel and visit a few places. Very cool, but we can live without that one FFS.
I'd be very happy to see the cruise industry die off. Those floating Petri dishes are an environmental catastrophe that serve no purpose to humanity other than giving old people a chance to post something on Facebook.
I think cruises have their place. I would like to see them work somehow toward being carbon neutral though.
Small, yacht-like vessel. Shows behemoth. I know it's not as big as a full-size cruise ship. But it's still huge.
I am terrible person. Every day that I read about people's behavior in the face of a global pandemic makes my very, very tiny violin a little smaller.
What kind of a fucking clown would purposely get on a floating petri dish in the middle of a global pandemic? This is social Darwinism at its most efficient.
The same people who proudly proclaim that they don't buy into the whole virus thing and that masks are actually harmful.
My mum was dead set on going on a cruise in March 2021. She's overweight, diabetic, and has heart issues. She knows that COVID is real, but seems to just ignore it, cause it's not going to stop her. I think she just desperately wants to go, and there's no reasoning with her.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.